Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Only Murders in the Building, Season 4, Episode 2. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, this episode kind of has... Obviously, it's funny, as in your typical Only Murders in the Building type of fashion, but it's also sad, especially all the Charles stuff. Especially where you ended off with Charles in a sad situation of him, like, covered in her dust and having, like, her, like, replaced, like, metal joints that she had. And it's just... That was sad, and in this entire episode, Charles is going through it. I mean, Charles has been having a rough go of it, for a while now, but this is kind of another tipping point for him, and he's just covered in, like, Saz's ashes, and he doesn't know what to do. He's like, well, what do I do? And it's like, I don't want to just, like, get rid of, because it's like, it'd be very disrespectful just to kind of get rid of her and just flush her down somewhere. So his plan is to wash his hands into a bowl, put that into a jar, and then she was going to evaporate. I guess he felt like that was the most, because he's like, I'm not just going to, like, pour it down the drain or whatever. Because I didn't know if he was going to, like pour her ash. I mean, it's like, how much of, you got some of her, but I mean, I'm assuming all the ashes that were there were Saz's. So it's not like it's all of her too. So you can't even really do the whole pouring her ashes somewhere situation, because you also kind of have to not mess with the crime scene as much as they did, but it is what it is. And continuing Charles' like mental break, he is starting to see Saz. So I'm going to focus on Charles' side of things, and then I'm going to switch over to Mabel and Oliver and everything they were dealing with this episode, because Charles gets sidelined. Actually, I believe it's on the Hulu YouTube account. There is a... there is a community tab talking about, like, who do you think is going to be, like, the one who ends up solving this murder. I think it's going to be Charles. Because Charles is my pick, because I believe that he is going to... Because this case is so important to him. I mean, as we find out later on, he's like, well, that ended up being the number one question. And that was the question at the end of Season 3, but also kind of brought up last episode as well, the beginning of the season, saying, well... Who was the target? Was it Saz, or was it always Charles and they killed the person that looks like him? That whole situation, right? So initially it's like, well, he's going to like try and solve Saz's murder, because it's very similar to the whole situation for Mabel in Season 1. It's like, here's someone that you're close to. Granted, there was years of like them not being close, but then it's like, this is someone that has been in Charles' life for the past 40 years. So it's like, this is probably the closest hit to home situation. Like I said, Mabel's situation was what it was, but it's like, she had lost touch with this person for like a couple years, which is funny to kind of bring up the whole Season 1 of it all, considering the whole Jan of it all. But I'm jumping all over the place. I do apologize. I'm going to rein it back in. But my point is, this is probably the case that, I think it could go hand in hand, but I think this one hits a little closer to home than even the Mabel one, just by the smallest percentage, just because of Charles and Saz's relationship being such a continuous thing for 40 years. But either way, that's where I think Charles is going to be the one that has an aha moment and be the one to kind of wrap it all up, because it's so close to home. Because, well, first it's about Saz, but now it's like, well, it's potentially about me being the target. So there's all of that. But either way, Mabel and Oliver are sidelining him, because, like, well, you might be the potential victim. So it's like, right, we love you. And I love Oliver being like, I love you. I just wanted to, say that. And, basically, if I come back and you're dead, I want to have been able to, at least say that, So he's kind of upset being sidelined in this investigation. And he has his sounding board, which is Saz, which is just a manifestation of his subconscious, being trying to make him feel better, being like, it's okay, of course you don't want to accept that you might have been the target, because if you were the target, that would have meant that I died because of you, and that's a lot for anyone to handle. And that's what this is. It's a lot of guilt on Charles' part, because I think for him it's a situation where I don't think he always and it's true of life in general, where he feels like he didn't probably tell Saz how much he cared about her. I think he's like, I don't know if I ever made that clear. And now it's like, sometimes you don't say it enough, and it's like, in my actions, with my words, I don't always reflect that like I should. Letting people know what they mean to you type of situation. So I'm sure a little element of that is riddling, Charles with guilt. But it also, along with the whole, like, right, you potentially died because of me. But, who knows? Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe he did make that a lot more clear than I'm, under the impression, but who knows? Either way, when he's already kind of dealing with all of that, he gets another surprise, and that is Jan broke out of prison, and her reason for it was because she was trying to get in contact with Saz, which apparently Saz was trying to break up with Jan, because the last time we touched on that was when we found out about the relationship back in season 2, right? I don't think Jan ever popped up last season, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't even remember if they ever talked about this. That's why I wasn't clear on where the Jan and Saz situation was. But it seems like they were clearly still together. So maybe Saz was saying one thing to Charles, but then doing a whole other thing, like, nah, I'm going to keep this going with Jan. I don't know. So I love the whole thing of, well, if I tell you, will you not kill me? It's like, yeah, I will kill you if you don't tell me. He's like, touche. Oh, these knives. Let me wash them. Oh, I've been meaning to wash these for a while. And ends up telling Jan the truth. And Jan's like, right. Whoever killed Saz, to cremate the body means you don't want the person you're after to be aware of it. So this person, once you got a feel for, killing, you'll, and you might have messed up your initial kill. You're going to kind of want to try again. And she's like, you're going to try in a more fucked up way or something. It was just like, okay. Like, I would hope that you would at least want to try and ease Charles' nerves, consider how, shot his nerves are with all of this. They even had that conversation. The sad stuff this episode is so sad, but also so beautiful, because, Charles, and this kind of actually feeds into the point I was bringing up of, I don't know, he was like, I wasn't always, the narrative that maybe he wasn't always as appreciative of Saz as he could have been or should have been, or at least it could be potentially viewed that way, was the whole point of anytime, Saz has took all these blows for me over my career, and it's like anytime something was about to happen, the director would say freeze, and then Saz would say tap in, and would cover me, and Jan was even saying that because of Saz's height, she could never get a lot of doubling for women roles. And so being Charles's double for so long, she's like, yeah, it kind of gave me my life. And she was like, Jan's like, Saz loved you so much because of that, so. But also, you also begin the episode, it's in the beginning of the episode, it's kind of maybe in the middle-ish of the episode, and at the end of the episode where we have that interview with Saz, and Charles says the saddest thing where he's like, you've been on hundreds of things on television, or hundreds of episodes of television, yada yada yada, but no one will ever know who you were, because this documentary, this behind the scenes talking to her about being a double, is the only time on camera her face has ever been captured on camera. So this one particular video or whatever is all there is of Saz's face on camera. It's no one will ever really know your face, which Saz is kind of fine with that, because it's because it's not really about that. It was just my job is doing what my job was, and that's all that mattered, And it's just that is sad that so many, just thinking about that. And I guess, almost in a meta way, it is a thing of we do need to be, I think we don't appreciate the stunt crew, on movies and TV shows as much as we should. They are a backbone of so much that we see, that we just don't give them enough credit. And enough credit's never thrown away, because there's talks about that in the Oscars and the Emmys. Is when's there going to be a stunt category? Or I don't watch the award the Hollywood award shows enough to know I don't think that's a thing. Maybe it has become a thing in more recent years, and maybe I'm talking out of my ass and I'm completely wrong. But for it to be so long and there not to be that recognition, sucks. So I think that's that lane of right, you have to appreciate they are unsung heroes when it comes to filming a movie or a TV show, But we also had that thing near the end of the episode with Charles and Saz, which I thought was so beautiful. Like I said, Charles, he had talked about the fact is that he didn't have any friends on set. He's like, yeah, it was enjoying my fresco by myself, and you like ended up coming over. There was other people from the crew, and you brought them over, saying like, oh yeah, that I had invited them over for a poker game, and I hadn't. And he's like, for 8 years, like we had that weekly poker game, and that's because of you. And it's like, you are my oldest best friend, and what am I going to do without you? And I was like, this sad stuff is so heartbreaking. Like I said, it's so beautiful. I brought it up last episode. I was like, I think Saz might be Charles' like legitimate. I mean, he luckily has other best friends now. He has Oliver, he has Mabel, but for such a long time, like as we know, he doesn't really have much of a social life. He doesn't have a lot of friends. So for him, it's the only, like, Saz is his oldest, bestest friend, and it's like, you are that person there for me. And especially you combine that with the ending of the episode talking about Saz being like, oh, you got to find your one. And she's like, I found my one, and that's Charles Savage. And I was like, that is, it's so beautiful, that whole relationship. And I think it's so beautiful what they've done for this character. We've seen make some pop-ins here and there throughout the series, but it kind of give them this like beautiful, like this sad situation. They almost have this beautiful eulogy of sorts for this character and what this character means and what Charles meant to her. Like it's just this beautiful symbiotic relationship that the show has had with this character, and it's in its way, and also like how Charles fits in. It's just, I just think it was beautifully done, and it gets you in all the feels, But anyway, staying on the Jan stuff, going back to that, we actually don't know what Jan. Well, I forgot. Like Jan was saying, like she was going to murder Charles, but the only reason why she didn't was Saz. I guess like at any point in time, like after getting arrested, she probably could have broken out of prison. But it's like, right, I found new love, so I wasn't going to like do it because Saz told me not to and convinced me not to. So I guess that's the only reason why Jan has not popped up to kill him at this point in time. And it's like, man, that's their Jan, as Saz says. But it's like, well, how do you mean that? Do you mean it as like legitimate, like because it's Saz and Charles's Jan, or you mean that as like Saz, the subconscious projection of Charles? So it's like that there's a entendre there. There's like a double meaning in that capacity when Saz said that. But yeah, Jan just kind of like talked about the fact is that she was going to like sleep with Charles like one more time or something like that before the cops got onto her trail. And Charles was like, well, I mean, we have enough time. It's like, you know who she is, you know what she is. And it's like, well, we have been, there was still a thing in season 2 where he was still kind of attracted to her before he kind of broke things off finally. But it is the thing of, oh yeah, because she was also calling out someone like, oh, snipers are cowards. The fact is, like, shooting from far away, it's like, really killing someone up close and personal is what matters. It's like, yeah, it almost makes you wonder, like, how do we not? I mean, it's just like now that all the pretenses of, oh, I don't have to pretend not to be the sociopath that I am anymore. I'm just like let my murder flag raise and blow in the wind type of situation. So, and Jan just bounced away and just kind of left afterwards. But I love that Mabel and Oliver thought he was going crazy, that he was seeing all that. It's like, I was like, well, we know she took off the uniform, but did she throw it away? Like, I mean, that would have been a clear sign of like, well, she took off the prison uniform, prison officer uniform, didn't she? And change, or was she? No, she said she was going to change her clothes. I don't remember if she had already changed them or not. I thought she did, but maybe she didn't, and she was still in the uniform when she left. She probably wasn't. I just didn't remember. Either way, understandable, like why Oliver and Mabel would think he's crazy, because it's like, well, he is, talking to no one that's there, which even Mabel's like, I've talked to dead people before. And Oliver's like, yeah, I even saw you guys did like the little dance number he had Charles and Mabel do. I think that was last season. I think he referenced it this episode in that capacity. I was like, oh yeah, I think that's exactly what, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure that was last season. That little show that they kind of put on in his, mental projection of them. I also love that we got more context for the Loretta situation. He needs the movie situation to work specific, because it's like, right, my beautiful, successful girlfriend, the only way I'm going to be able to keep up with her if I have something successful associated with me. That could have been Death or Out, but that's all, it's pretty much, nail in a coffin for that. So it's for him, and this is like, while she's getting more and more successful, it is the thing of, well, what do I do? Am I not good enough? I need to be successful because that's the only way I can keep up with her. Even he did say it last episode of like, hey, how am I supposed to keep up with you? And that's his biggest concern, because he's like, once you get big and famous, you won't need me anymore. And it's like, well, love doesn't work that way, but he's kind of scared of that, because it's like, well, Oliver's got this deep-seated fear of being irrelevant anyway, so it plays into those fears, and now you just add the love component when, like, you know, the person you love is success. It's not like a jealous thing. It's just like I feel inferior in the capacity of, you're going to find someone bigger and better than me, and if I can't keep up, then I'm going to get left behind, you know? So, either way, this whole situation, this whole episode, also, this season seems like, I thought the LA of it all was going to be like one wrinkle that this was going to add in. I wasn't expecting us to be like, oh yeah, there's a whole other side, a whole other tower to the building that we've never really dealt with, and that's the west side of the building. And Charles starts looking at some of his neighbors, one of which is like, oh, it's like, that's freaking Richard Kind. I was like, oh, I love that. I was just, he was in some episodes of Evil that I was watching recently. I was like, oh man. And I was like, oh, just perfect timing. And then also, one of the other neighbors, I was like, wait, is that? And it's like, yes, it's Camille Nanjiani. I was like, I thought so. I was like, oh, I had no idea who's going to be in this season. Which is just funny timing, because before I recorded this episode, or even watched the episode, I was already like thinking about him, because the whole Booster Gold rumors about him playing Booster Gold, that was a conversation I was like having with someone about. Either way, just serendipity and all that is all I was talking about. Either way. Well, it actually kind of relates even more, because Hulu's under the Disney umbrella, and because what had sparked that conversation was like me talking about him in the MCU as King Gold. So it was just, once again, even further serendipity in that, even more serendipitous because of that. But either way, so there's these people that Charles is like, right, here's the guy with the stink eye Joe. His real name's Vince. Then there's the family who's got all these pans and they're stirring. And then there's the guy, the Christmas light guy who keeps Christmas up all the time. And then there's the apartment that doesn't have any, like, who has their blinds up all the time. He's like, I see some stuff every once in a while when they cut the lights on and off, but that's about it. And so Oliver and Mabel go investigate. Turns out, Stink Eye Joe, or Vince, has like a very contagious version of Pink Eye that constantly goes back, plays hot potato between his two eyes. So I was like, that's what that's all about. But he's also looking at Charles, because Charles is looking at them because he's thinking they're looking at him, but they're looking at him because he's looking at them. So we also find out the other neighbor that they're like, the family, the mom is a super Brazos fan, and he's on her hall pass, which I love. Her husband's like, yeah, but like a hall pass, it's meant to be for someone you won't run into. I mean, the hall pass is a hall pass. It's meant to be like a thing of, oh, if you run into this person, you can have sex with them. I mean, it's just because you're unlucky that your wife is into a guy that she could easily have access to. That's just the roll of the dice, you know? But it's supposed to be a thing of, hey, if you have the opportunity to sleep with said famous person, you get the pass. And it's like, she's in her right to have the pass. You're just upset because, like I said, it just Brazos just happens to be very, very easily attainable in that regard. Especially because he's like, yeah, like the guy's staring at my wife all the time. Once again, it's just like Charles' awkwardness, because he's thinking like something's weird about them, and now we know why the wife is constantly stirring pots, and why the like daughter and husband are watching, because they're like, all right, there she goes again, like trying to put on a show for him. And it's like, well, he's staring all the time, so she wants to kind of make a show of, not show of it, but kind of stay in his line sight. We never found out Christmas Guy's reason for constantly, once again, looking at Charles and what his whole deal is, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. They had this whole game, which we don't actually get to see it being played. We see the aftermath of it, the game Oh Hell, and you're like, what the fuck is that? Whatever it was, like Mabel started kind of getting into it. Then there's like Oliver won, so he gets to go to the bathroom. You're like, what is that about? And it's like, oh, it's bathroom ham, or as Oliver calls it, toilet ham. I'm like, and you can slice it off. I'm like, what? Why is that a thing? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. What is that about? They end up eventually getting into the apartment they were asking about. I forgot. It was a name that was amongst Saz's files back in California, and they ended up getting the code to the place, and they went in and found a whole pig, which they did let it go, which Maple was like, okay, which I love the puns that she was like, oh, notorious PIG. Wasn't there some like actual like news reporter, like wasn't there actual famous pig or whatever known as Notorious PIG? Was that like a reference to that? There's some like news reporters that have covered like, you know, I can't remember what it was called now. What was it? Piggy Smalls, Notorious PIG. I'm like, what those? Those are actual names of like pigs that were like a news reporter or whatever. It's like, you know, I feel like I remember some videos with those names, or maybe I'm mistaking it for like these pigs having different names, but it feels like those names sound so familiar in correlation to like some real pigs that were on the news or something. Maybe I'm full of shit. I don't know. But they go into that apartment, and it does seem like it might actually be the vantage point where the shots were fired. So it's like, why leave the pig? Someone came to the door, but by the time Mabel and Oliver got to the door, the person was gone. So I don't fully know we don't know what to really make of it. Because we ultimately end up finding out that the numbers they used to get into the that apartment, it's actually the stamp was upside down. It's actually oh hell, which is a game. So it's like, right, someone from the West Tower might have had something to do with Saz's murder. So you're like, what's going on there? Like, and it just happens to coincide with the number to get into that apartment. It's like, is that just pure happenstance, or is it a deeper thing of, oh, we made these numbers look like this, we chose these? It's like choosing the number 8,000 on certain calculators, 8,005, because it looks like the word boobs. So I don't know if that was just kind of like the thinking behind that. Like, was it meant to be, you know, especially if it was upside down, and like, is that just a coincidence? Because it's like, yeah, they did manage to get inside, and whoever knew the password, you know, was about to come in, or at least we'd assume they did, but they heard like Oliver like bang on something, and I think they just dipped. So who knows? Then we also have the whole situation with Detective Williams showing up at the end. That kind of surprised me. Because I was like, oh, why are you here? I was like, because we know that Charles was on hold with the 911 the entire time, because there were so many, what was it? They were this, because they had 68 emergencies in front of them. Oliver didn't say anything about it, but I was like, ha ha ha. He's like, oh, it gives us more time to investigate. I was like, ha ha ha, 69, making you the 69th emergency. Ha ha ha, 69 sex number. But yeah, when Detective Williams showed up, I was like, whoa, why are you here? And it's like, oh, because she's like, Jan escaped. She used parkour and sexual manipulation to get out. And she has some drawings about some stuff that she was going to do to you, some really fucked up stuff. What was it? Was it like an acid shower and a golden shower? Don't actually know how that last one was supposed to kill you, but whatever. And so it's like, oh, Jan was here. It's like, wait, she was here. Anything else you want to tell me? It's like, yeah, I want to report a murder. And she's like, shut the fuck. Oh, you got to be fucking with me. And it's like, yeah, it's always something with this crew. Poor Detective Williams. So, but yeah, they used the luminol that Charles had ordered to see Saz's final message, and it was tap in. That was their thing. And so that means a lot in the grand scheme of things, because it's like, right, it's your turn to tap in to solve this mystery. And it's like, well, we're not solving Saz's murder, we're solving mine. But I think it's also like there might be an even deeper meaning to that, because this might have something to do with their career and Saz always tapping in for them. Because like, why would that specifically be your thing of like, why leave that message in particular? Like, other than it being a thing that only they would understand, because whoever it was cleaned it up, obviously. since they couldn't actually see it without the luminol, so like it was cleaned up. So they thought I guess Saz had to leave something that would be a clue to Charles, but not mean anything to anyone else. So don't know quite what to fully make of all of that. So like I said, I feel like it has to probably correlate to the past, as they were talking about, like, you know, who would hate Saz, but it's also like, well, who would hate Charles? He's like, yeah, I was like the eighth, favorite man on television or something like that. And Oliver's like, yeah, in '89. He's like, 91. Come on. So we'll see where things kind of go from here. I guess we will be getting a lot more Jan this season, as she's on the run, and I'm sure she's going to be somehow weirdly crucial to this case. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. I'm curious to see if we're going to get beyond just the suspects we met, including Kumail Nanjiani's character as well, even though we didn't really meet him. But, like, is there any... I mean, those are the only ones on the floor that are in a position that could have been, in a position to try and kill Charles. So that's why they're like the top suspects. But is it someone else in this? Someone on the east side of the building, like that Charles, Oliver, and Mabel live in? Or it could end up being someone related to the movie, even though the movie didn't come about until like after Saz's murder. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.